Okay, so a literal equation, and you can just type this if you want, or you can write it with the, I know some of y'all like to type, but as an equation with multiple variables. So I want you to go ahead and solve that equation on the left. 2x minus 5 equals 13. I'll give you a second to do that. Should be a pretty simple task for you to do. All right, so you should have, and if you wrote this down, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. But if I'm going to write it down, so the first thing I would do would be to add 5 to both sides to get 2x equals 18. And then divide by 2 to get x equals 9, right? Everybody fine with that? Okay. We are also going to solve that other equation for x, meaning we're going to get x by itself. Looking at what we just did, what do you think would be the first step in getting x by itself? Yeah. Adding b, right? The first equation we added 5 because that's what was being subtracted. So in this equation, b is being subtracted. So we're going to add b. So on the left-hand side, my b's cancel and I'm left with just ax. BJ had a great question. Well, what's c plus b? B. I don't know. We're just going to write it as c plus b. I don't know what it equals, so I cannot combine them. They're also not like terms, so I can't combine them. All right, what's happening to x right now? It's being multiplied by a. What's the opposite of multiply by a? So we want to divide both sides by a. So my a is on the left cancel, and I'm left with x. And I can't do anything with the stuff on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to write it as c plus b over a, and that would be the answer. Again, we're not solving. We are just like doing the steps to solve without actually combining all of the terms because we can't combine the things that aren't the same letter. So notice that the steps to solve are the same as if I were to have numbers in there. Instead of the numbers now, I have variables, multiple variables. We're going to skip this like little quick right thing. We're going to go ahead and just start doing some practice problems. So I want you to look at number 1. Number 1 says A equals LW. Does anybody recognize that? It's a formula for something. Area equals length times width. We are trying to solve for W, meaning we're trying to get W by itself. Well, ask yourself, what is happening to W? Multiplied by, so we want to do the opposite of multiply by L. Divide by L. Sorry, I should make that look more like an L. So these L's cancel, and I'm left with W equals literally, literal equations. Get it? Sorry. A divided by L. You can't do anything else. Does anybody recognize the equation on number 2?
Isn't it the
area equals base times height. And what variable are we trying to get by itself? H. So what right now what's happening to H? It's being multiplied by B. So we want to do the opposite, which is divide by B. On the right-hand side, my B's cancel. And I'm left with A over B. I'll give you a second to do that. I know some of you are using the draw tool. It might take a second.
Doesn't matter if it's capital.
Whatever you start with, I would leave it as that, especially when we talk about area. Area is capital A, so I would leave it. Who had Mr. Hannah last? Actually, I don't know if y'all talked about it in Mr. Hannah's class last year. Who had Mr. Hannah last year? Did y'all talk about the formula in number 3 at all? Do you recognize that formula? Okay.
Density.
It's not density. That's a good guess though. Not diameter, another D word. Huh? Distance equals time. Does anybody know what the R is? Rate. Distance equals rate times time. I would say, I'm pretty sure you may have done that in science at some point. So distance equals rate times time. What are we solving for? T time. So right now time is being multiplied by R. So we want to do the opposite, which is divide. So we're going to be left with T on the right-hand side and then D over R on the left-hand side. Any questions so far? Again, keep in mind that you're not necessarily solving for anything. You're just kind of manipulating it. Anybody know the equation on number 4? I'll be impressed if you do. It does stand for something money-wise. Not insurance. Interest. Interest equals principal times rate times time is what it stands for. Now we have more than 3 variables. Now we have 4. What are we solving for? T. What's happening to T? It's multiplying by P and multiplying by R. But luckily we can do this all in one step. We're going to divide both sides by P and R. Yes, R. You're such an odd child. So on the right-hand side, we're left with just T. On the left-hand side, we have I on the numerator and P and R in the denominator. I'm glad. Take a couple seconds. I want you to do number 5. Does anybody recognize the formula number 5? Volume equals length times width times height. And you're trying to solve for the height. It's being multiplied by length and width. So we want to divide by length and width. So you should have gotten V over LW equals H. V over LW equals H. Okay, I'm going to skip number 6. So go ahead and look at number 7. I don't know what number 7 is. It's not a formula. It's just some letters. I wish it was something, but it says M equals C minus S, and we're trying to get C by itself. So what's happening to C? Subtracted by S. So we want to do the opposite, which would be plus S. So on the left, we have M, plus S. And then on the right, we just have C.
Is that a greater than 5? Or
Is that a what? No, I just have bad handwriting. Sure. Do you know what formula number 8 is? Yeah. There you go. Density equals mass divided by is it velocity? I think it's velocity. Yeah, it's velocity. No, hold on. It might be volume. No, he's right. It's volume. And you're solving for mass. I don't know. So density, you should have multiplied by volume because volume is being divided. So dV equals M, or if you did V first, then D, it doesn't matter. All right. Let's look at number 9. What is this? Yeah, does anybody know what shape that's for? Triangle. Area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. We're trying to get height by itself. So what's happening to height? And b. So we want to divide both sides by 1/2 and b. Now, it's not usually mathematically correct to have a fraction inside of a fraction. So we want to change that divided by 1/2. What is the same thing as dividing by 1/2? What's the same thing as dividing by 1/2? Multiplying by 2. So instead of, we want to end up with 2a because we're multiplying by 2 and then b in the denominator. So let me explain that. We could multiply both sides by 2 to end up with that 2a instead of dividing by 1/2 because we usually don't have a fraction inside of a fraction. Not that that's wrong, but in math, we usually don't do that. So we have 2a over b equals h. Anybody know what 10's formula is? Not velocity. Volume. Volume for what?
Rhombus.
A rhombus is a 2D figure. It doesn't have volume.
Trapezoid.
That's also a 2D figure.
A pyramid.
Yes.
Oh boy, really?
If you guess, that's a pretty good guess.
No, it's 1/3 basically.
Yeah, 1/3. I call those like pointy objects, so like cones and pyramids would be like the 1/3. So we're trying to get the b by itself. B is being multiplied by 1/3 and h. So just like the 1/2, dividing by 1/3 would be the same thing as multiplying by 3. So we want to multiply both sides by 3. And we're also dividing both sides by h. So when we do that, we're going to end up with 3v over h equals b. We're going to do a few more. Yay. I know you're pumped. Yeah, I'm not going to do like, we're not doing all of them. No. BJ sounds like he wants to do all of them. No, I just chose it as my profession for no reason. I do. I was actually going to be an actuarial scientist, but then I just didn't. And that's like literally sitting at a desk and doing math like all day long. I mean, you make a lot of money though. So, huh? Yeah, I was. Yeah, I didn't really do anything else. Like I didn't get good grades. Like just because I was lazy.
What? Because you have to do the same thing every day. Well, like every class.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it. It's fine. Okay, so 11. Anybody know that formula?
Kelvin.
No. It's a good guess, though. It is a science thing. Kinetic energy. Yeah. Kinetic energy equals mass times volume squared divided by 2. That is kinetic energy. So we're trying to get M by itself. Lots of things are happening to M. M is being multiplied by V squared and divided by 2. So we want to do the opposite of all of those things. So what's the opposite of divide by 2? Multiply by 2. So let's rewrite this first. So we have 2K equals MV squared, because remember we got rid of that 2 on the right-hand side. So right now M is being multiplied by V squared. We want to do the opposite, which would be divide by V squared. So your answer would be M equals 2K over V squared. We're gonna do 2 more. Sure.
I think we should go outside. No.
Okay, so we're gonna look at 13. Does anybody know what formula 13 is?
Something that deals with
Perimeter.
Yeah, perimeter. Perimeter equals 2 times length plus 2 times width is what that says. And we're trying to get W by itself. So let's deal with the first piece, that 2L. Is 2L being added to 2W or subtracted? Added. So we want to do the opposite. The opposite of plus 2L would be minus 2L. So we have P minus 2L equals 2W. W is being multiplied by 2, so we want to do the opposite, which would be what? Divide by 2. So your answer would be P minus 2L in the numerator and then 2 in the denominator. All right, and the last one we're going to look at is 15. I will be very impressed if anybody recognizes the equation for 15 because you don't learn it until my class.
Have you learned it yet?
No, not yet.
She just said-
I just said you will learn it in my class.
Yams?
Yams, yes, we learn about yams in my class.
Yeast.
No, it's for slope. Have y'all talked about the word slope before? Okay, slope is an M, is like the variable for slope. Technically, this is slope intercept form is what it's called. In your class from last year, they may or may not have talked about slope. I don't know. So 15, y equals mx plus b. We're trying to solve for x. So right now, x is being multiplied by m and added by b. So let's do the opposite. The opposite of plus b is minus b. So we have y minus b equals mx. And then we want to divide both sides by m. So y minus b over m is going to equal x.